Good
Yes.
morning, afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world, listening to the fastest 15 minutes in food, connecting the dots with Dr. Food. I'm Charlie Arnot, CEO of the Center for Food Integrity. We are working to build trust in today's food system by sharing insights on the issues that are affecting food and agriculture. For that, we are fortunate enough to have a conversation on a monthly basis with Dr. David Hughes, Professor Emeritus at Imperial College London, highly respected authority on all things related to food and agriculture around the world. Today, we are fortunate enough that he joins us from his home in the UK. Welcome, David.
Hi there, Charlie, and I hope you did well with your awful storm. You had cold, we've had wet, 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 I might tell you. Last week I was in the east of England, which is our low-lying area. It's where the big farms are, actually. And we had biblical rain, and we were in the middle of it, and we had to abandon our
Oh,
car
my.
on higher ground. But luckily, because it was a farmy type conference that I was speaking at, there was a big deal estate owner who had a big deal mega four-wheel drive, and he came and picked us up and took him to where we had to be. It took us 36 hours, by the way, to get the car before the floods went down, dear Lord.
Wow. Some adventure, but you can always count on those in agriculture to come to your rescue. That's just kind of how they perform. So that's a good thing. Okay, so this morning we're going to be talking about some interesting trends that are taking shape, including some move by big players in the global protein market, which is very, very interesting. The impact of weight loss medications on supermarkets and restaurants. But first, let's discuss a little bit of the outlook for food retailers. Now, I was at the FMI conference a couple of weeks ago in San Diego, and several speakers referenced the K shaped economy with a focus on premium and value at retail as a way to recognize, essentially, and respond to the changes that we've seen in the economy. So that's what we're seeing here, David. What are you seeing in the UK?
Well, actually, Charlie, it's exactly the same, with huge consequences, as you identify, for the food industry. We've got those income have-nots, and then the income haves. And what's more, what we've noticed over the post-COVID, that the income have-nots have grown in number, and they're desperate. And many of them spend up to 20% of their household income on food, and they've
Mhm.
got big bills apart from that. Whereas at the other end, it's just 5%, if you will, where really high food prices are neither here nor there. And actually, you can see, I saw it at Christmas time, big time, that Marks and Spencer's, one of our premium retailers, they put out some specials, so-called specials. And one was beef Wellington. It was special beef
Mm.
Wellington, six at the snip of a price of $300. So that was
Oof.
like $50 a piece. And I was sort of intrigued by it. I didn't know if I wanted to buy one, but I didn't need to because they sold out on the day they put it out.
Wow.
So, there's room at that end, and that's for the big income people. But if I look overall, I mean, 2026 is going to be a tough old year for consumers in the UK and for retailers. Food price inflation is about 4% at the moment. That's too high for us. We wanted it down low, and that our economic growth is very low, less than 1% at the moment. Consumers are struggling. And what does that mean for food retailers? We know that means that competition in food retailing will be all about value, i.e., low price. And that is good news for the hard discounters, but difficult for some of the wider, the broader grocery retailers, the traditional supermarkets.
Right.
And those hard discounters, they will gain share from traditional supermarkets. But actually, what's intriguing to me is that our top two traditional supermarkets, Tesco and Sainsbury's, they're holding on well there. They know how to compete against hard discounters, but it's that second tier, Asda, which was Walmart owned at one stage, and Morrison's, which are our sort of fourth and fifth retailers. Incidentally, Morrison is owned by a US private equity firm, CD&R, who I don't know, by the way. And they are suffering and they will continue to suffer. And I don't think it's going to get much better for them. If one of them rolls, then they'll try and convert themselves into hard discount. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah. But at the other end, as I say, Marks and Spencer's, our premium retailer, is gaining market share. And again, that just sort of underlines the polarization that you were mentioning about. So significant high end and significant low end. I was taken by just looking not 3 days ago, the survey of consumer confidence in the UK over the last 5 years and into the future. And what did it show? The over well, the under 40s, it surprised me this, were increasingly confident. They had a sort of
Hmm.
strong positive view of the world, whereas the over 40s, particularly the later 40s and the more aged, had a really dyspeptic view. I mean, why? For my mind, it probably reflects that if you're in your 40s, you've got children, they've got school costs, college costs, you're still well into your mortgage, you haven't paid that off. And then
Right.
for the over 60s, they've earned their money and are now reluctant to give it back to the government as taxation has gone up for those in higher income. So perhaps, over 60s, they think the world's at an end. And of course, for some of them, it will be.
You can
But
see it from there.
you can if you stand on the chair. Whereas the young ones, thankfully, are ever optimistic, and long may they be so.
Excellent, excellent. Great summary, David. Thank you so much for that insight. Now, another topic discussed at FMI was the fact that protein continues to be a dietary driver and a retail traffic driver. Very interesting. It's not subsided at all, but there is one source of protein that has seemed to get less attention than others, and that's eggs. Now, you tell us eggs are getting a lot of attention in the global market, so give us a little more insight into what's happening.
Okay, well, let me kick off with again something on supermarket chains. They all have big supermarkets, but every one of them has thousands of little teeny stores. So, for
Hmm.
example, Tesco, it's Tesco Express, Sainsbury's, it's Sainsbury Local. And these are located in downtown where the footfall is, right next to schools, colleges, etc. And they present huge competition for fast food companies. Why? Because every one of them offers a lunch meal deal and a dinner meal deal. So, for example, let's take a Tesco meal deal. So, what does that that includes a sandwich or a pot of pasta with some protein. You also get a snack, cereal bar or potato chips, chocolate bar, and you get a drink. It could be a Coke, Pepsi, water, or coffee, for goodness sake, or tea. And you get that for $5. And
Wow.
so, good deal or what? So my granddaughter, 17-year-old Seraphine, she'll 4 days a week, she'll go for the meal deal for her lunch.
Sure.
And why I mentioned is that the most popular snack last year, 2025, with Tesco, because they measure these well, was hard-boiled egg protein pots.
That's
And it bumped,
surprising.
yeah, it is. It bumped the number one brand potato chip from the top spot.
Hmm.
And I thought, wow, that has never happened before. And so that focus on protein, egg sales have really blossomed in Europe and actually around the globe, as you mentioned. Even though egg prices are 50% higher than they were pre-COVID, of course, prices have stabilized. We've had to, as you have, the avian influenza problem. We've got a shortage of egg here, which is so driving prices. Last week, 8 countries across the EU put out avian influenza warnings, and prices were up again in 2025, but also demand was up, which really took me back. If you take our eggs too, that most of our eggs, 70% plus actually, are free range eggs. And what's more, it's dominated by own label, by supermarket private label. It's not heavily branded, if you will. And we have, just as we do for all food, eggs for the haves and have-nots, just as you do. I was looking at Walmart, for example, you can pay 65 cents in your market for an egg, or you can pay 18 cents. So 3 times less. And we more or less have the same within our market. So, there's something going on. Are our egg producers, are they happy? Well, we should have happy egg producers, but they're a bit grisly. Why? Not least because of avian influenza,
Hmm.
but also they're not producing enough eggs for our market, so we're importing them from the Ukraine. What's
Hmm.
more, Ukraine has duty-free access to our market. It's a sort of helping hand for the Ukraine, if you will, and farmers are just disgusted because they say, look, it's not at our level. You haven't got our safety requirements or our high standards. But moving to the global market, I mean, post-COVID years, eggs are on a spectacular run during such a difficult period, the last 5 years. And I was really taken at how big companies want in on the act. So JBS, the biggest food company in the world,
Yep.
far away, yeah, far away the biggest meat company, it wants to become a global leader in egg production. And their CEO has said, we want to do with eggs what we did with beef, pork, and chicken. And what's more, they bought the largest egg producer in South America. They've bought a major one in the US. and it's Brazilian. And there's another one on the out there looking for egg markets too. It's intriguingly, it's called Global Eggs. It's a
Hmm.
Brazilian firm, but it's moved its headquarters to Luxembourg. I would suggest that's probably for tax reason. And what's more, it's picking off, it's just going around Europe buying egg companies. And what's more, it bought Hillendale Farms in the US too, which is your fourth largest player. So where in the food industry, wherever I look, Charlie, but sector by sector, the big are getting bigger. And eggs, though, they tended in history to be domestic orientated, and
Mhm.
now they seem to be breaking through that. I'll be intrigued to see if, for example, your biggest player, Calmain Foods, which is the biggest egg producer in the world, for goodness sake, it produces more eggs, that one company, than the entire UK egg industry. I wonder if they're saying, what's going on out there? We're only in the US at the moment. Perhaps we should have a look outside, but let's see.
Fascinating. It's one of the last sectors to actually see global consolidation take place. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. The other thing we have to always be careful of in agriculture is AI could mean artificial insemination, intelligence, or even influenza. So we have to
Yes,
clarify when we're talking in agriculture, which type of AI are we talking about at the moment? So it
quite
is
as important differences.
Yeah, they are very important differences. So it is February, which means most of us have already broken all of our resolutions, or at least some of them. But weight loss resolutions are now being replaced with medication. So, what are you seeing in terms of shoppers focusing on their health, and how are restaurants and retailers adapting to this new lifestyle in the UK? Because we know in the US it's a focus as we are considering food as medicine more and more across retail. But what are you seeing in the UK?
Right. Well, 1 in 5 said they took part in Vegan January or Veganuary, however you say it. But actually, a fair proportion of them said, well, we didn't do it 100%. We sort of played at it. And what's more, it's an indication of how we'd like to change our diet going forward. A bit like it wasn't dry January for them, it was damp January that we had the odd drink. But what's more, we're going to keep that going, or so they say. Now, in history, Vegan January, was driven by animal welfare concerns, and that's switched now completely to health. It's all about health. I was looking at a consumer health survey just done, and say, what are the biggest influences that will affect you, how you eat going forward this year? And unfortunately, 50% said, well, actually, it's my income. I'm poor at the moment. I can't afford to buy the good food that we want, that my family wants. But 30% are interested in GLP-1s. Now, we're not at your level yet. I mean, not you personally, but the USA's level, Charlie. So if you're 13% are on GLP medications, we're about 7 at the moment, although it's increasing at pace. Now, here at the moment, it costs about $400 a month. And again, I was intrigued that those who have said, can you afford that? They say, well, not really. But if I cut out eating out, then I can afford it, which is not good news for the restaurant industry. But in the UK, we have a free at point of delivery, as we say, health service. And the government is developing a rollout plan for prescribing GLP-1s to under our National Health Service. So the requirements, you must have a BMI of 35 or more, peculiarly unless you are Asian, African, or Middle Eastern, and then it's 32.5 or more.
Hmm.
Also, you have to have comorbidities. So you've got to have type 2 diabetes. You don't have to. If you have type 2 diabetes or high blood pressure, then you're more likely to get the free drugs. And you have to be on some personal plan. Show that you are trying to do something about your weight without drugs. But backing onto the food industry, what has taken my attention is that grocery retailers, all the majors, see this as a huge opportunity to increase sales. And they're all developing GLP-1 friendly ready meals. I mean, ready meals are a really, really big deal in the UK. For example, the total retail spend on ready meals is more than the combined amount spent on beef, pork, and lamb. So
Wow.
it's a very big deal. As we know, GLP users eat less food. The strong focus on fruit and veg and on better protein, meat protein, and dairy fats, etc. But so, for example, what have we got? It was again Marks and Spencer's first out of the traps, and they've got a nutrient dense meal range. which comes in at about $5 a meal. But the others are tending to focus on international cuisine, which is often Indian style foods, curries, etc., involving chicken, the cheapest protein, of course. I don't see a big difference in terms of the type of meal, apart from the fact they're just smaller. And I smile to myself because Waitrose, another premium retailer who's trying to mimic Marks and Spencer's, came out with 100-gram steak, 3.5-ounce steak, saying this is a special steak for those on weight management duties. And Marks and Spencer's competitors said, essentially, bullshit. It's just a tiny steak. There we go. And to finish on a light note too, I was really taken by one person's effort to capture money from GLP users. It's a Michelin 3-star chef called Heston Blumenthal, who you might not know, but he's very famous across Europe. He has a terrific restaurant called the Fat Duck in southern England. And he had been on Mounjaro brand of GLP-1 for weight management. And it inspired him, as he said, I'll read this, to create a mindful experience tasting menu, especially designed to cater for diners with reduced appetites and those taking anti-obesity medication. Well, actually, the menu is essentially the same as his regular multi-journey tasting 12-course format, 12 different courses. Now, normally he charges $500 per person for that.
Wow.
And he said, here we are. This is a GLP-1 special. You can get it for $375. It's a snip. I mean, essentially, what are you getting? The meal, but for smaller portions. I mean, God love it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the food industry continues to entertain and perplex us and provide lots of fodder for conversation. So, David, thank you as always. That's all the time we have today for our fastest 15 minutes in food. Join us next month on March the 5th for the fastest 15 minutes with Dr. David Hughes. David, thank you again. Hope you can stay dry and not related to your dry January, but your car stays dry and out of the water, and we'll catch you again in March.
Thank you, Charlie. Onwards and upwards. Bye now.
Bye-bye.